Welcome back to the Junk Room, everybody. I'm the Junkman. If you didn't know that, then you haven't seen my other videos. Shame on you, go watch them. And let's get the stuff out of the way that you really don't care about. Go to Patreon, support us, get a lot of exclusive content. I'll have the link to Patreon down below. And go to our website to buy Star Wars shirts. You know, we got all kinds of Star Wars shirts. Like these down here. Hopefully I can fit them into the graphic. I won't spend much time plugging stuff because you know, just go to StarWarsJunk.net. Everything you need is right there. I also will tell you about an exciting new podcast we have called the very first Star Wars podcast. It takes place in 1978. That's right, a podcast like 1978. We're going to tell you news about Star Wars 2, the Kenner line. Anything Star Wars coming out around 1978, we'll be there. We're using real news and information during that time period. You're not going to see us talk about stuff that's not even out yet. I don't know why I say us, because it's just going to be me. But I hope to have some guest hosts every now and then to talk about news. But that should be online. By the time you watch this video, you should be able to find it. Go to StarWarsJunk.net. You'll be able to find the podcast link there. I might put a copy of the podcast up on YouTube. Not decided that yet. So, let's talk about the most controversial Star Wars thing ever. And I'm not talking about The Last Jedi. Let's talk about one of the most talked about, most loved, and most hated Star Wars novel ever. Let's talk the Murky Coruscate Saber. Let's get it on. Let's love sugar. First up, this book is very hard to find, but I actually tracked one down at a library in South Georgia. I was going to put it right here where I talked about it, but the library wanted it back. I thought about keeping it because it's so rare. They told me if I didn't bring it back by March 23rd, I would owe them 10 cents a day. So just pretend there's a book here, but I'll put the artwork up there or something. And as you can see, I got my computer right here because I try to remember this review in my head, but my head already remembers things for a few seconds. And what was I talking about? Oh, so I'm going to have to look back and forth and try to make this video good by keeping my eyes on the screen and reading my review. Because, believe it or not, most of the time I don't write this stuff. I know it looks like I spend weeks and weeks writing all this stuff, but a lot of times it's just off the top of my head. So let's get on to the book review. This is probably one of the most controversial Star Wars books because either you're in a group that really hate it or you're in a group that really loves it. There's no even with The Last Jedi, you had a lot of in-between people. This doesn't seem to be the case. You have people, you have the fans and you have the haters. Again, this novel is called the Murky Coruscate Saber. Now, a lot of people just refer to this as the Murky Saber. So if I say that, you know I'm talking about the whole title. It's just very hard for me to say Coruscate. You know what I mean. But anyway, let's get on to the review. But this book is very controversial. Like I said, some hate it, some love it. What did The Last Jedi, Rian Johnson, think of this novel? He wrote, The Murky Saber is the greatest Star Wars story ever written. It takes everything we love about Star Wars and turns it on its head. And that's a glowing recommendation from The Last Jedi director himself. But not everyone involved with Star Wars was as happy as Rian Johnson. Director and I guess creator of the Rebels cartoon series, Dave Filoni, tweeted this out when asked about the novel. There's a reason Disney killed the EU, and that reason was called the Murky Coruscate Saber. It's not just a bad Star Wars novel, it's a bad novel. It's the worst thing ever written on any place. Even worse than anything you'll ever find written on a bathroom wall in a truck stop men's room. This divide isn't among just new era Star Wars fans. Lucasfilm producer Rick McCallum read the book shortly after its release, and it's reported that he was so upset at George Lucas that he said if he ever saw this novel within 200 miles of Skywalker Ranch, he would quit and never, ever watch Star Wars again. But what did the man George Lucas think of this novel? Well, that's a little bit more complicated. Shortly after the release in 1994, George Lucas told Parade magazine, I knew Star Wars was no longer mine. That someone, other than me, just told the greatest Star Wars story ever. It was like I lost a child. Star Wars from that day on was no longer mine. So it seemed like Lucas was a fan of the novel. However, in Star Wars Insider issue 87, Lucas is quoted as saying, if I could, I would not only burn every page of the novel, but I would burn the mind of anyone that ever even looked at the cover. So it seems like somewhere between 94 and 97, he fell out of love for this book. But what's the story about? Why is it so controversial? Why do some people hate it and some people love it? Can it be that bad? Can it be that good? And why is it out of print? And why has it been wiped out of Star Wars history? Well, after years and years, like I said, I finally tracked this book down at a public library. What's the story? Well, I'm going to give you the layout of the story and let you decide what you think. The story starts off 3 years after the events of Return of the Jedi. Leia is no longer part of the rebels. Her and her now husband, Han Solo, are smugglers. She left the rebellion because, as she says, she found it boring now that the heart of the Empire is dead and gone. The book opens with Han and Leia in the middle of a spice trade that's gone terribly wrong. The two fight and joke their way out of a hangar on the planet Telsa 7. There in the hangar, they escape on the new Falcon known as Eagle 1. And their plan is to deliver this highly addictive new spice to the new Hutt godfather, Todd the Hutt. That's right, Todd the Hutt.
It's not my mother, Todd.
We are then taken to the planet Davron 4, a dark, dark world because there's no sun for this planet. On this planet, hovering over a great ocean, is the castle of the first Sith Lord, Sith Bakaroon. He was the first great Sith Lord and ran the galaxy for 218 years until he jumped to his death from the top of this floating castle. And it's rumored that his soul still haunts the castle, who is now owned by Grand Wizard Baron McVillan. We learned that McVillan's been using old Imperial bases to take control of star systems that were no longer ruled by the Empire. He holds control of 11 of these systems and many more soon to follow. However, this Grand Wizard may not be so grand after all, because we hear a strange voice remind the Grand Wizard McVillan he's really just being controlled by the puppet master. Finally, we get to Luke Skywalker, the leader of the Jedi Knight army of 17 elite Jedi Knights. Each of these knights has their own Padawan. This is the first time in Star Wars history that the word Padawan is used, a word that Lucas would carry over into the prequels. These new Jedi are praised, admired, and loved by almost everyone in the galaxy. However, Luke has started to feel a disturbance in the Force. He tells his top Jedi Knight, a female Jedi named Jade, that he's being awakened each night with a horrible dream. This dream is visions of Han and Leia and an unknown teenage girl with a lightsaber, who Luke describes as looking like the most sweetest, innocent girl in the galaxy. She's completely happy, full of life. Yet that's what's scary about her. Luke feels her darkness, and it's a darkness he's never felt before. No conflict, nothing but pure dark. And that is what makes her so happy. She loves being so dark. The book then takes a 2-chapter turn. We are sent back to the planet Endor, about 2 weeks before the events of A New Hope. On Endor, we meet Jock Wayland, a young female or male, it's not really clear in the novel, and her or his father, Starfire. We see Wayland going to a new school, adapting to her or his new surroundings, dealing with a new school teacher who's a little bit more strict than Wayland's used to. Then, after the 2nd chapter, we never hear from Wayland or anyone from Endor again. It just completely goes away. It's like a whole different book. We are then taken back to the main story, where Han and Leia had this great plan to take out Todd the Hutt. And once removing Todd his power, they could rule the Hutts and the gangsters of the galaxy. As Leia tells Han, if she can take out one Hutt, she can take them all out. As they start their planning to take over Todd the Hutt, Han goes through some of the cases of spice. In one of these cases, he finds a lightsaber. It has a dark handle, no gadgets, no buttons, smooth and black. He picks it up, tries to ignite it, and can't find a way to turn it on. He shows it to Leia and asks, what kind of lightsaber is this? Leia takes the lightsaber from Han and it ignites. It turns on by just her touch. And the blade glows clear. Han is confused. He asks, what about this saber? What's the deal with this lightsaber? And Leia tells him it's the Murky Coruscate Saber. It's been lost for thousands of generations. It was once owned by the great first Sith Lord, Sith Bakaroon. Leia, looking at the clear, glowing blade, can't look away. After a few seconds, she drops it in fear. We soon learn that anyone looking at this blade will show them their potential dark side, what it would be like if they were a dark Jedi. She then tells Han that the saber must be returned to its resting place, or the great first Sith Lord will return, more powerful than ever. Who can they get to help return this lightsaber to this rightful place? Who do you think? Luke Skywalker. Han and Leia track down Luke Skywalker, while Leia hands over the Murky Saber. Luke takes it, and like with Leia takes it, it ignites, and he stares at the glowing, clear beam. Looking at this, he sees that he's the father of the happy, dark girl that he keeps having dreams about. His daughter at this time is only 2, although the girl in the vision is probably around 16. And again, he sees that she's pure dark. No chance of ever coming back. But Luke feels that if anyone out there can help save his daughter, it's the great Sith Lord Baccaroon himself. So Luke takes the saber and heads to Baccaroon's castle and waits for his return. But once at the castle, he learns that the Grand Wizard, McVillain, is there and under the control of the puppet master. Someone from Luke's past. His own sister, Princess Leia. How could this be? Well, Luke soon learns that in the events of Empire Strikes Back, Darth Vader took Princess Leia with him, leaving Cloud City. And unknown to Luke, the Emperor, Han Solo, and everyone else, Leia was replaced with a clone Leia. The real Leia was with Darth Vader between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, learning to be a Sith Lord. Meanwhile, Han and clone Leia travel to the Hall system. Their plan is to keep some local senators from joining the new established empire. But once they get a meeting with these senators of the Hall system, they are terrified when they meet clone Leia, thinking she's the Sith Leia that's been the puppet master behind everything. Han and Leia soon learn the truth and they head to Deveron 4. Time they show up, what do they see? Sith Leia striking down Luke Skywalker. Her red lightsaber cutting Luke Skywalker in half. The clone Leia grabs the Murky Saber as Sith Leia stands ready to defend herself. As the lightsaber duel begins, the great Sith Lord Baccaroon appears before them both. And we end this last chapter of the book with the greatest lightsaber fight ever. Trust me, even if you hate the book or love the book, everyone will agree this is the best lightsaber fight ever. Clone Leia versus Sith Leia versus the ancient Sith Lord Baccaroon. I will not spoil how this ends, but the book is full of surprises. That's a look at the novel. What do you guys think? I'm not a big book guy. I haven't read a lot of the novels. This one and just a few others. However, this one is a little hard to judge. One chapter you read will be the worst thing you ever read. And then the next chapter will be the greatest thing you ever read. I think Mike Randall over at the New York Times summed it up best in his 1994 review when he wrote, "The Murky Saber is at times a book feel like it's written by Charles Dickens, and another time feel like it's written by a first grader." Well, that's my review of the controversial, out-of-print novel by Russell Miller. Have you read it? What do you think? Let me know what you think below. If you find a copy of this, check it out and read it. I would love to hear what you guys think. Again, thank you for listening, and we'll be back again probably in a few days to do another video. Thank you for watching.
Soap is videotaped before a studio audience.
Thank you, sir, for that unsolicited testimony.